Thank you so much, Phil. Oh, got it. Thank you so much, Phil. Good evening, everybody. My name is Arisa, and I'm most definitely an alcoholic. The date of my last drink was October the 13th of 1993, and for that, I am truly, truly grateful and honestly really amazed because for a girl like me to go this long between drinks, frankly, it's just stupid. It just was not the plan. I don't know about you, but if you came to Alcoholics Anonymous one day because you just thought it was a good idea, well, God bless you, but I don't think we could be friends, because it just was not a good idea to me to get sober. I mean, it was the worst idea in the world. I've had a lot of good ideas in my life about how to fix my life, but coming to Alcoholics Anonymous was not what I considered to be a good idea. It was a really, really bad idea. The only problem is all my good ideas didn't work out. And so the last idea, the last really house on the block for me really was Alcoholics Anonymous. So I got to tell you, I wasn't planning to stay. It was not what I was looking for. I am here truly by the grace of God, and it is only because of a very, very large book and 12 steps that a sponsor helped me to work that have enabled me to have a relationship with a God that I wanted nothing to do with that has kept me sober. And like I said, I don't know about you, but sobriety did not sound like a good idea to me. you know, um, I grew up in Corpus Christi, Texas. If you don't know where that is, that's about 4 hours south of Houston, 4 hours north of Mexico. So when you guys are talking about negative 38 degrees, I'm going, oh no. Because the only place I never wanted to live was in Boston because somebody showed me the movie Love Story and there's just way too much snow in that movie. And I didn't even own a coat. Now I've lived here longer than I've lived anywhere else. And I got to tell you, it's wonderful to be in Tennessee. I was hanging out with my son earlier this evening and he wanted to know where I was speaking. And I told him I was going to be in Tennessee. And he said, oh, it's the second best state in the union, because he is a Davy Crockett fan and I can sing all the words to it. So got to tell you, it's fun that my family loves Alcoholics Anonymous. It really is. But I'm jumping ahead. So I started drinking the age of 15. And that first drink that I had, I didn't expect anything of it. It was half a daiquiri, frozen daiquiri, shared with a friend. She'd put one nip in it. We watched the sunset over the Gulf of Mexico. And it was just lovely. That's all it was, lovely. However, we had them in these styrofoam cups. We're good girls. We don't litter, right? So we're carrying our little cups back to the car so that we don't, leave the world a dirty place. And there's an undercover cop and I get a minor in possession. Now, mind you, I have no alcohol, but I managed to get a minor in possession because the undercover cop said that the cup smelled like alcohol and that was enough for him. Okay. And not much happens to most people with half a nip in them, but I think something happened to me because I looked at my girlfriend and I said, you know what, if I'm going to be in this much trouble, I'm going to deserve it. Because I came from a family where there was a lot of discipline. My idea of discipline was not a pretty thing. It was a lot of violence. There was a lot of ugly stuff that happened, and I really was afraid. And I talked her into taking me back to her grandparents' house, where I found the liquor cabinet. It was padlocked. So I found a screwdriver. I took the hinges off said liquor cabinet and I proceeded to have a drink out of every single bottle in that very extensive collection of alcohol in that cabinet. And by the end of the night, let's just put it this way, I had to be contained. She locked me in the den to limit the damage I could do. And because here's one of the things I realized early on, how you experience me when I'm drinking and how I experience me when I'm drinking, there's a gap between those things. In London, they say, mind the gap. And, there's the gap there. And I didn't realize that because, I'm married to this lovely man. His name is David. He's a non-alcoholic and God bless him. They're really cute. Sometimes you just want to pat them on the head. They're a little hard to understand. When he drinks, he gets this slightly tipsy, out of control feeling, which he doesn't like. So get this. he stops. He stops. He lets champagne go flat. You know, he puts the corks back in. He buys argon gas and sprays it in hopes that 6 months later, the alcohol is still okay in there. Like, that's alcohol abuse. Like, who does that stuff, right? And what I began to realize is that the thing is, see, when I drink, I don't get slightly tipsy and out of control. When I drink, oh, honey, I get in control. When I drink, I get all of the promises. For me, drinking is a spiritual experience. It gets me here now. It makes me into the best version of me I've ever felt like. Now, I get it. You don't maybe like that version of me. Maybe you see me like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. But I feel like there's finally enough oxygen in the air. I intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. I definitely know how my experience can benefit everybody. You know, I'm not afraid of the past or the future or anything. You know, I don't regret stuff, nothing. I have courage. I have peace. I have joy. I cry better. I laugh better. I dance better, everything better. Right. And so I need to stay really, really clear on what alcohol does for me, because if alcohol doesn't do for you what it does for me, you will never let it do to you the things that I let it do to me. And I like to say, I'm kind of like the firecracker alcoholic. It's like add alcohol, instant disaster. I come from a long line of alcoholics on my mom's side of the family and a long line of missionaries on my dad's side. That's a toxic cocktail, guys. It really isn't good, you know? And so I got all kinds of like crazy stuff going on in my head and in my life. And my skin is just way too tight. And really early on, you know, I start drinking with the football players. And when I say early on, I mean within like a week, you know, and like I said, I'm from Texas. These guys are big. Okay. There's no like, oh, half a wine cooler and, oh, I'm so, you know, buzzed. I've never been buzzed. I've never been buzzed. I chug the whole bottle of Jack Daniels by myself in half an hour max, and I don't share. I've never kept the cap to anything. I don't understand why. My idea of one is until it's gone. My favorite drink is, what do you got? What do you got? I'm an underage drinker, you know? It doesn't matter to me. I drink for effect. That's all I care about. I am drinking to change what is inside of me. When I drink, something happens to me that I never want to let go of. That freedom, that happiness, you know, that peace, that serenity, the chatter of the 1,000 monkeys that is going on in my head nonstop. They finally shut up. Oh my God, they shut up. You know, those stage characters that we look at in the 4th step, right? And I got a million of them. You know, I got the daughter and the sister and the sponsor and the sponsee and the mother and the artist and the student, and all of them have a different idea of where I should go and how I should do it and what you know, oh my God, just can't shut this stuff up. What you think of me, what I think of me. Within 6 months of my drinking, I am on 6th Street in Austin, going in bars where it's not even legal for me to be. My first time in a bar, I get abducted and raped. That's what alcohol does for me, does to me. You know, I have no sense that I shouldn't be there. I'm 5'11", so of course I should be able to go into a bar, right? I mean, it just never occurred to me that it was an unsafe place. What I care about is getting to go and drink. That's what I care about. And I was really lucky. I escaped, and soon after, I am, as Bill says in the Big Book, I'm drinking for the sickest of all reasons, for oblivion. Right? I've got to just get through the day. There are a lot of things that people in Alcoholics Anonymous say that aren't actually slogans in our Big Book, you know, and some of them work and some of them don't, maybe. And if this works for you, great. But a lot of them I really don't like. I could do a whole talk on what I don't like that we say that's not AA. But one of them is, God will never give you more than you can handle. You know, and I understand the premise of it. But for me, the truth is, Breathing in and out for 24 hours is too much for me. Lack of power is my dilemma. I need something to help me through the day. And the only two things I've ever found that actually work are a whole lot of booze or a whole lot of God. And when I got to you, I didn't want anything to do with God. And all I knew was to drink to take away the pain, because alcohol, I found, treats alcoholism. And I didn't realize I had alcoholism, right? But what I knew is that when I drank, I was okay, just for a moment. Just for a moment. I'd sit at this T junction overlooking the Gulf of Mexico when I finally got my driver's license, and which wasn't long after this incident. And I'd be sitting there trying to get the courage to kill myself. And I was not a very creative person. The only way I could come up with is, to drive off the edge of this cliff, right? And I'm waiting for the light to turn green, because God forbid, if you're going to kill yourself, you can't run the red light, right? So I'm waiting for the light to turn green, and this miracle would happen. This miracle, it happened multiple times. I didn't see it as a miracle then, but today I really do. As the light would turn green and I'm getting ready to gather my courage and punch the gas, I remember there's a keg party out at the beach. And I don't have to die tonight. See, alcohol treats alcoholism, and I didn't realize it. That I was drinking because if I didn't, I wasn't going to make it through the day. Bill Wilson in his story talks about, dragging his mattress down so that he didn't burst through the window, right? That instead, he drinks for oblivion. And I get that. That's how I drink. Just in case you don't think I'm a real alcoholic, because when I got here, a lot of people told me I was too young. A lot of people tried to make me think that I hadn't done enough to have earned my seat in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I thought I was a high bottom drunk. I was still in college. There was a lot that was going right in my life. But the thing is, when I drink, I have a tendency to get alcohol poisoning. When I drink, I have a tendency to go into the DTs. When I drink, there are invisible things crawling on me for days after. And I don't know that that's not normal. It was years in Alcoholics Anonymous until I realized that not everybody has gone through the shake, rattle, and roll. I didn't know that. I really didn't know that. I knew that my drinking wasn't like my girlfriend's. I knew that it's not normal to be drinking with the football players. And I knew that there was something going on inside of me. And I started to try to control my drinking. And for me, I could, to some degree, control my drinking. I could control it or I could enjoy it. If I'm enjoying it, that's when I end up with the invisible things crawling on me, But I started to do things like, I'm going to therapy. I'm taking antidepressants. I'm taking all these religion classes. I'm chanting with the Hare Krishnas. I go down to Brazil and I paddle up the Amazon and I swim with the piranhas, and and I'm doing all of these things. And it's not that these things aren't good things to do. Well, except maybe swimming with the piranhas. That's just stupid, But they don't treat alcoholism, because I don't realize I have alcoholism. I think I drink too much because of the stuff that's happened to me. I think it's because my dad dragged me down the stairs by my hair. I think it's because of the mental abuse. I think it's because I've been abducted. I think it's because I've been stalked. I think it's because of all of this stuff that has happened. And if what had happened to me had happened to you, you would drink too. But I got to tell you, none of that stuff makes me alcoholic. What makes me alcoholic is the fact that when I drink, I don't want to drive off the edge of that cliff. That something happens inside of me that treats something down deep in my soul, that I get just a little bit of oxygen. As the doctor's opinion says, that I get this sense of ease and peace, right? That I am restless, irritable, and discontented unless, that's me at Jump Street, unless I can have this drink. When I drink, I feel more normal. That is an abnormal response to alcohol. It really is. I didn't get that. And I didn't understand that the most insane thing I've ever done is not trying to jump out of moving vehicles. It is not swimming with the piranhas. It's none of that stuff. And there was a lot of crazy stuff. The most insane thing I've ever done in my life, I do from a point of sobriety, and that is to pick up another drink, to absolutely believe that it is going to be okay, that it is better than not drinking. Because for me, not drinking is just about how long can I hold my breath? Can I do it for a day, for a week, maybe even a month, maybe even Lent? But at the end of it, I'm breaking my arm, patting myself on the back because it's such an unbelievable accomplishment that I have managed to stay away from it. I have to move off campus because I can't be around keg parties and people who are drinking because I can't say no to it. And mind you, when you're drinking, I freaking hate you. I hate people who get to drink if I can't. I really don't like it. I feel like I'm being punished. Sobriety is doing time. The most painful thing I've ever experienced in my entire life is sobriety. So when people start talking to me about maybe you ought to look at your drinking, I'm thinking, maybe I need new friends. Maybe you should stop drinking. Just put me in the ground. You may as well just throw me in the grave because I can't do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to live sober. Sober is like 24/7 nails on a chalkboard. Just stop it already. I have never been so tired as I was just before I got sober. I wasn't afraid of dying. I was afraid of not dying. The reason I came to Alcoholics Anonymous is because I had nowhere else to go, and I was terrified that I wasn't going to get to die. That I didn't have the strength to do something else more drastic. And I could see that this was going to keep going and going and going. And I was so unbelievably fortunate to walk into what I very lovingly calls a very fundamentalist meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. There were old timers there. The woman who became my sponsor later had been a loner in Africa, and she'd spoken all over the world. And her Big Book meeting is still going on twice a week at 6:30 a.m., where they read one line out of the Big Book at a time. Right? I mean, this woman was serious and she terrified me. She was like the queen of AA. She was gorgeous. She was like, I don't know. She was just incredible. She had this Texas hair, like you could probably tap on it, and these long nails, and she'd click them together, and a suit that to me looked like Chanel and pearls. And when she talked about being a lady of grace and dignity, I thought that's what it meant, right? That you get to grow up and be Mary Ann, and I was terrified of her. And so I would eavesdrop on her and what she would say to her sponsees, and then I'd go run off and do it. But thank God there was somebody there who understood how Alcoholics Anonymous worked, who really believed in all of our principles. And because when I walked in the door of that clubhouse on 18th Street, I was immediately identified as a newcomer. I was given a job that night, and I was given a sponsor. My first job in Alcoholics Anonymous, ashtray washer. You have not lived until you've been the ashtray washer, especially if you don't smoke. It is so much, you get so much more out of it if you're a non-smoker. I mean, washing the cups is great, and mopping the floor, it's all fine. Our equivalent now is the butt sweeper outside, right? We sweep up the cigarette butts, but even that's changing with all the, what do they call them, e-cigarettes or whatever. But and I had what does washing ashtrays have to do with getting sober, right? But they gave me a sponsor. This woman had 2 months of sobriety. 2 months of sobriety. I don't think she knew much more about AA than I did, but she was a chronic relapser, and they knew that if she didn't start helping people, that she was going to die. They were very clear there that Alcoholics Anonymous is not a self-help program. Alcoholics Anonymous is not a mutual aid program. Alcoholics Anonymous is a we help others to get out of God's way program. And, I told them, I said, but, I'm here to fix me. And they were like, darling, no, you've been trying to do that all your life. If you would just quit, things would get better. That's not the point. It's not the point. Stop trying to fix it. If you had the answers, you'd have done it by now. Why don't you try getting to I don't know? Because when you get to I don't know, you're teachable. That's the deal for me. It's not what I do know that's gotten me in trouble most of my life. It's the things that I think I know that just aren't so. It's the things that I do believing that I'm right, believing that I have the answers that got me in so much trouble. I thought I knew what Alcoholics Anonymous was, but I didn't. They told me that I needed to find the God of the big book. And because I wanted nothing to do with your God. And they told me that that was okay, that I could have good orderly direction, that I could have a group of drunks, and I was one of those wise Alec young people who was like, and there weren't a lot of young people around. So it's not like I was in YPA or something like that. I'm talking to old people here, old timers, with 20, 30 years of sobriety, and telling them, well, why can't I have the doorknob God? And they're like, darling, honey, if you want to turn your will and your life over to the care of that doorknob, you go right ahead, because at least it's out of the hands of an idiot. Anything's better than what you've been doing. And you know what? They were right. They were right. That it was just about not demanding that the world always be my way. And that first sponsor, she told me, she said, I think if you don't work the steps, you're going to drink again. And I really, really didn't want to drink again. I was willing to do anything she told me to. And when she made me do my third step, I say that in a very loving way. I mean, I wanted to, but I didn't want to, right? I've turned my will and my life over to her. Right. That's really what it was. She was kind of my first higher power. Right. And when I went to her, she had me go to her house to do the third step. And I've been studying. I've been studying the prayer. I got to remember, I'm so terrified I'm going to get the prayer wrong. I'm going to get a word wrong. Right. I've missed the part in the books that says, oh, the wording is actually quite optional as long as we're right. So anyway, she makes me go upstairs to her bedroom. Now, I come, like I said, from a long line of alcoholics, and alcoholism is rampant. And no good Al-Anons don't let you down the hall, right? So I'm all of a sudden, I'm up in this woman's bedroom that I barely know. And she has me kneel down next to her bed. And I'm getting all skeevy about this. I got to tell you, it's not, I don't want to be kneeling next to somebody else's bed, right? That I hardly know. And I'm holding her hand and we're saying the prayer. And we get up and she looks at me and she said, did you feel it? And I don't know what she's talking about, but it's a program of rigorous honesty. So I'm like, no. So she makes me get back down on my knees next to her bed, holding her hand. And we have to say the dang prayer again. And so we say the prayer and I'm a little less worried about the words, right? My heart's pounding. And we get up afterwards and she looks at me and she said, did you feel it? And I'm like, no. So we have to get back down on our knees for a third time next to her bed where I'm just all wigging out at this point. And I'm holding this woman's hand that I barely know. And we're saying the prayer and we get up and she looks at me and you guessed it. She said, did you feel it? And right then I learned what any links means. And I said, absolutely. I don't feel whatever you wanted me to feel. I don't know what that was supposed to be, but I felt it. I felt whatever. It was years later that I realized what she meant was, did you mean it? Did you say it with feeling? So I actually hadn't lied, but I was willing, anything you want. She's the one that told me when your sponsor tells you to jump, you don't ask why, you go exactly how high would you like that? She gave me full permission not to like it, whatever it was. Out in the parking lot, go have a temper tantrum all you want, darling. And then you do it. Then you just do it. It really doesn't matter what I think about what you're asking me to do. I am willing to go to any lengths. And that's what I learned from her more than anything else. She also taught me, she said there are 2 times to go to a meeting. If you sponsor people, this is a good one. When you want to and when you don't want to. Ain't that the truth, right? And she had me do a fourth and a fifth step. And truth is, I did everything she told me to, and I didn't understand any of what was going on in that fourth or fifth step. I really didn't. And I went back to college about a week later, and I got myself a sponsor who actually had some sobriety, and I actually knew the big book. And people were talking about, seeing their patterns and all this. And I didn't know what anybody was talking about with this, but I'd written all this stuff, and when Pam asked me, she said, well, what step were you on? I told her very proudly, I was like, I'm on step 6. And she said, oh, no. No, really? I'm on step 6. And she said, honey, nobody's on step 6. You're on step 1. And so there I was back at the beginning, and big resentment there, right? But I did what she told me to. And I'm so grateful because she's the one who actually helped me to understand what alcoholism is. She's the one who actually helped me to understand what it means to find the God of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. She's the one that really taught me to not let anybody else read my big book for me, that I needed to have a direct experience with what this book tells me and what the step work will lead me to. She had no opinion on my life. She was there to guide me to find my higher power, to find my own path. And that was the deal. And when I did my 5th step with her, and I was looking at my resentments against my father and my mother and this person who had abducted me and all of this, right? And we would talk about, I'd say, well, what I did to deserve it was, and I'd list off some, whatever thing that I'd done that might have been annoying or whatever. And she said, darling, listen, the truth is you had nothing to do with that. You were a child. There's nothing you could do to deserve the kind of abuse that you went through. But the resentment is 100% your fault. How are you using it today? How is it your get out of jail free card? How do you use it to rationalize treating other people poorly? How do you use it to however it is, to not try things, to not believe in stuff, to a convenient, reason not to trust God, right? The ego loves to not trust God because then I get to stay in charge, right? She's the one that taught me that it was time for me to start looking for God's fingerprints on my life. She was the one who helped me to understand that I had spent my life blaming God for the things people do and giving credit to human beings for things that God does. She also helped me to understand that I have a tendency to judge you by your actions, but me by my motives. She's the one that helped me to understand that it was time for me to stop being the lawyer for the prosecution, to put the clipboard down and cross the courtroom and become the lawyer for the defense, to try to assume love and not malice. What if it was possible that my father had done these things and he loved me? I thought he did those things because he didn't love me. What if those two things could coexist, right? How do I fit this idea that everything happens for a reason that we hear so often? Because I couldn't, little kids, I couldn't put that together. But she helped me to understand that although I may not agree with that what I can see, especially through you in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, is that there is nothing that happens in this world that God cannot turn to his purpose. That my God is a God of alchemy today. That I believe Alcoholics Anonymous has taught me that it is the seemingly good and the seemingly bad. Don't you dare limit God. One other thing I hear in the rooms in the last several years is expectations or premeditated resentments. It's cute. Sounds good. Maybe you like it. Maybe it works for you. But the thing I've found is that that's inconsistent with the big book. Because my big book tells me to expect miracles. My big book tells me that I should be able to trust and rely on God. That the world and its people will often be quite wrong. That's true. But I've got to get past that. I've got to get to the other side of that. I would rather have an open heart that gets broken than one that is never closed. They taught me in that first home group that it was not whether or not you loved me enough. It is whether or not I love you enough. If I get busy loving you, it will melt the polar ice cap from around my heart. And that's what we do here. That it's my job to love you. Constant thought of others. That's what we do. That my character defects boil down to the same things over and over and over again. That if I do a good job in inventory, I really do want God to take them away, root and branch. And that I am going to screw up. that you guys aren't asking me to be perfect. I was the only one who ever asked me to be perfect. God doesn't ask me to be perfect, because to be a perfect human being means you're going to make a heck of a lot of mistakes. Years ago, I read this thing that says a spiritual person makes about 600 mistakes in a day. That's like the Pope or the Dalai Lama, not us. This is like spiritual kindergarten in AA, right? I mean, and I have so much pride and ego that I don't want to admit to having two, right? What is so wrong about being human? Because that's as good as it gets. That's what shoulder to shoulder really means. The only time any of us are above or below is when we're reaching down to help somebody else back up. I believe it was Mandela who said that he didn't want to be judged by, how well he did. And I'm totally paraphrasing, but by how many times he fell and got back up. And that's what we do here. We are constantly falling down. And I learn more from my mistakes than getting it right. To be able to be truly human, to feel like it's okay. In my home, you got knocked across the room if you did something the way you weren't supposed to do it. And I was terrified of doing anything wrong. And I needed you to do everything my way, or else the world was not okay. But what if I could throw out the whole idea of boundaries? What if I don't need boundaries? What if, no matter what, if I am disturbed, the problem is within me? What if, just like any AA meeting has the right to be wrong, what if you do too? What if my dad gets to be wrong? What if, no matter what you do, I don't have to lose my spiritual fitness? I don't have to lose my footing. What if and what Pam taught me in that very first real inventory was that although my family installed these buttons, and it was not my fault that those buttons were there, that it is my responsibility today to pull out the wiring and change it, so that when they push my buttons, I don't automatically suck somebody. That now today, when I just had my dad here for 10 days, and I got to tell you, that was a long visit, especially it's been 2 years since I've seen him, right? And he's still difficult. I had a sponsor years ago who, Bob, who said, he's like, I really admire your dad. I had to drink a whole lot of alcohol to act like that. I mean, my dad doesn't drink. He's just selfish and self-centered. He's just kind of a messed up person, right? And he says things that are often quite wrong. And he does things that are often quite wrong. But the question is, why do I need to fight somebody like that? Who is sicker, the one with mental illness or the one who lets the person with mental illness upset them? The latter, perhaps? Perhaps that would be the distance of my inventory. And I've learned here that those amends that begin with that formal statement of, I was wrong. Hardest words out there, right? I was wrong. And my sponsor taught me there's a period after that sentence. I was wrong, period. Wow, that was a really hard one to, I was told you stick around long enough, you'll learn to enjoy the taste of crow. That it's an acquired taste. That I actually, for the first time in my life, the core of it is I want to be on the hook. Most of my life, I've been trying to get off the hook. I've been trying to get you to excuse my bad behavior. And for the first time ever, I don't want you to excuse my bad behavior. I actually want to repay the debt, because making amends to me is about going out there and picking up the pieces of my soul, the pieces of me that I have fragmented every time I compromise my principles. I have left a piece of my heart and my soul behind. And when I go and make it right, to make amends would be like if I ripped my dress, it would be to stitch it up as if it had never been torn. That's the job, to heal the separation, right? And I can't fix everything, but I can at least admit the debt. I can admit the debt and I can say, I was wrong. What can I do to make it right? What if I gave you a resentment, give you an opportunity perhaps to unburden yourself and really tell me how it affected you? Give me an opportunity to do what you might want me to do to set it right. What a novel concept. And I got to tell you, you haven't lived until, you have kids and you're making amends to little ones, right? Getting to be a sober mom. What a trip it's been. Oh my goodness. My son is 15 and my daughter is 18. And a number of years ago, my daughter, she wrote an essay for school on being raised by alcoholics. And she doesn't mean me. She means you. She means you, because my house is full of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they have learned that people get to mess up and people get to change their lives, and we make amends and we admit when we're wrong, and we try not to be selfish and self-centered, and we practice consideration. And, perhaps everybody actually has problems, because when I got here, I felt like I had the Eeyore cloud over my head. I was the lightning rod for problems. If something funky was going to happen, it was going to happen to me, like 1 in a million. It's like I had the invisible neon sign that only crazy people saw. That's like, victim, pick me, pick me, pick me, and crazy crap has happened to me. But the truth is, getting sober didn't stop the crazy crap. One of the most misquoted things in the book of Alcoholics Anonymous is we get up to the podium and we misquote how it works. We get up there and we say, I'm going to tell you what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And that is not what it says in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It says what we were like, what happened, and what we are like now, because I have had a spiritual experience. It is life. It's going to keep happening. I have been through so much sober, about 3 years sober. I finally started to get a relationship with God. And you know why, right? Because he showed up, right? The boy. And it's all, I'm going to go to graduate school in New York. He already lives in New York. I never thought anybody was going to love me. I never thought I'd get married. And all of a sudden he's talking about this, and he's just better than I could have imagined. So obviously now, the heavens have parted, the angels are singing, and God must love me, right? Because things are going the way I think they should. Just before I move up there, he calls and he says, I can't do this. And it's totally out of the blue. Like 2 weeks earlier, he gave me a diamond and emerald necklace, and then he's dumping me. I'm like, what happened? He says, I can't stand the thought that you might drink again. He comes from a long line of alcoholics. His mother ended up eventually dying drunk. And she was a chronic relapser in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And you know what? The truth is, I had done enough work that by that time I knew that he probably never would be able to sleep through the night without fear of me relapsing. I could get that. And I realized I'd actually learned to love people, to what it tells us to do in the book, to put their best interests above my own. Who knew I could do that, right? Of course, a couple of weeks later, as I'm going to go up to New York, where my sister also lives, I'm going to look for a place to live for graduate school. She calls me and she says, I got to tell you something. And I said, who is she? And she said, me. And a year later, they were married. So when I moved to New York, I knew 2 people in New York, and those 2 people were now together and wanted nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with me. And I got to tell you, I was so devastated. And I was going to meetings saying, I don't want to be an alcoholic, because I felt like my alcoholism was being turned against me. But what I got from that is how important it is for me to be with somebody who not only tolerates the fact that I'm sober, but loves it, that they know that they get a better me because of you. A better me because of you. And over the years, that I've been married, David and I have been together now 21 years, and only a handful of times has this happened. But when he's grumbled about something, I have gotten to look him straight in the eyes and say, and I know that you get a better wife and they get a better mother because I do this. And he absolutely knows that. And he loves you for it too. He loves you for it too. And my kids love you for it. So as I go up to New York, and I had this sponsor who had, 25 years of sobriety, and I never heard from her again. She never returned one phone call. That's back when long distance was really, really expensive. And I'm going to these meetings, and I got to tell you, have you ever noticed when you move, they don't do it right? I don't care where you move, they don't do it right. I'm like, where? I don't know where I am, but this is not AA, right? And I got my big book. And I'm going to these meetings and I'm not finding my people. But nowhere in this book does it say you're going to find your people. It says, though you may be but one man alone with this book, the fellowship will grow up around you if you carry the message. And so I move into this apartment on West 85th Street, and I go out. I'd been in New York for a few weeks and finally found a place to really live. And I got the meeting list book, which is like it's a serious book, right? And I look up the night and the area that I'm in. There's a meeting on my street. So I go out to the street and I'm looking, okay, where? It's my building. It's my building. And I go back in and I ask the receptionist, I'm like, is there an AA meeting here? And she's like, yeah, it's down in the basement. And I go down to the basement and it's full of men only. It's not a men's meeting, but there are no women there. And they're all trying to get sober. The whole building is run by guys who live in a sober house in Harlem. The people who cook there, the people who clean there, the elevator guys, everybody in the building is trying to recover from alcoholism. None of them have worked the steps. None of them know crap about Alcoholics Anonymous. And I don't know a man in AA that I can send them to. So guess what? I was the one who got to help them. I was the one. I didn't have anyone else to give them to. And I was willing to do that, and they saved my life because they really did. They gave me that bridge. And it's because I was willing to have constant thought of others, to give. And I know we give so much emphasis on the first step, but I got to tell you, my journey did not start with the first step. It started with the 12th step in somebody else's heart. I do not believe that the newcomer is the most important person in the room. I don't. They are super important. I think we're all important. But I am so glad that there were old timers in that room, keeping the doors open, assigning me to ashtrays, assigning me a sponsor, making sure I had a big book, because I would never be able to be here otherwise. I would never be able to be here otherwise. You know, and that was when my life really started to take off, when I was in so much pain that I had to really take a look yet again with, you know, I don't know who's going to guide me. I don't know where I'm going to go, but I'm going to give them everything I've got. And it says, only when I give the entire load away can I expect to receive, but then it will be in great abundance. Right? Then it really was. It was in great abundance. And I'm living in New York and I'm going to graduate school and I'm finding meetings that I like. I'm sponsoring people. I'm spending a lot of time with God. I'm really looking at this idea that all through the day, I have to be holding God's hand. I believe the 10th step can best be summed up not as clean up on aisle 3, but let's not make the mess. Right? The easiest inventory I ever learned to make was, are you holding God's hand? Because whenever I am disturbed, I've dropped God's hand. I don't get into trouble when I'm holding God's hand. Right? How do I do that more and more? How am I growing in understanding and effectiveness? How do I get to walk through this world, you know, a whole person, not bowing or scraping before anyone? How do I do this? How do I stay humble? Real humility is about being right-sized. When I got here, I lived in a hall of mirrors. Sometimes I felt like I was 12 feet tall, and the other times I felt like I was the Oompa Loompa. Right? And it depended on what you thought of me and what you wanted from me. It always was changing. But finding out the truth that there are things I am good at and there are things I stink at. And that I don't have to be the smartest person in the room. And I don't have to be the girl who has all the answers. That today I strive to be a woman who's willing to search for questions. Because if I can ask the right questions, I can go on this journey with God. I can be led. I can be truly, truly open-minded. You know, I really believe that honesty is rooted in open-mindedness. How do you know what you don't know? There's always more to the story. I don't think anybody gets up in the morning and says, I think I'm going to take a course of action to, you know, seriously harm Phil today or anybody else. You know, I've never woken up with that kind of absolute malice in my heart. But as the day goes on, I'm just trying to get mine back. I'm just trying to even the score. I'm just trying to do God's job because I feel like there's not enough for me. In the family afterwards, it says, we are absolutely sure that God wants us happy, joyous, and free. And it began to really resonate inside of me that if I could be sure, that's the God of the big book. That God wants me happy, joyous, and free. I always wanted to be happy, joyous, and free. I had no problem with that. Happy, joyous, and free. Happy, joyous, and free. Yeah, that's what drinking's about too, guys. But God wants me happy, joyous, and free. How different the entire foundation of my life became when I insisted that that was the God I was going to believe in. That's the God. That's my 10th step through the day, watching my thoughts. And anytime I'm in fear, doubt, insecurity, anger, anything like that, my God is too small. My God is too small. No, this is the God I choose to believe in. I'm going to turn back. The verbs in the 10th step and the 11th step, they are mind-blowing. Ask, watch, pause, turn, continue. Exactly when do you stop? The 10th step is when we learn to juggle, guys. I never stop doing this anymore. And you know what the thing about juggling is? You're going to drop the balls sometimes. You know, the other thing about juggling is it ought to be making you laugh. We absolutely insist on enjoying our life. If you haven't read The Family Afterwards recently, read it. There's so much good stuff in there. We absolutely insist on enjoying our life. I told you about my sponsor and that first temporary sponsor, and how she told me I was welcome to have all the temper tantrums I wanted out in the parking lot. I am a temper tantrum girl. I am real. Bring any 2-year-old, 3-year-old. I promise you, I can take them down. Okay. I got iron will. I have no problem with willpower. The proper use of the will is to have a spiritual temper tantrum. And I'm going to invite all of you as we start this new year to learn to have spiritual temper tantrums. Dig your heels in, dig your nails in, and don't let anybody tell you that you don't have to have a beautiful day. Enjoy your life because this is the only shot we've got at it. It's just for today. Today, I get to decide what the world is going to be like. Happiness is not a destination. It's a decision. I got to be a bridesmaid in that wedding of my sister's. And because I did inventory, because I made amends to them, because I was honest with myself, that the truth is that they make a much better pair than I do. And because I was willing to do that is the only reason I was ever able to appreciate my husband today. That's the truth. And I'm an artist, guys. You can kind of see some of my work behind me. I paint with fire. And my work, I like to say it's about spiritual alchemy. It's what you guys taught me. How do you take a negative and turn it into a positive? Because you get what you get. You know, life happens. Life is going to continue to happen. But it is what I do with it that matters. The most devastating things of my life are also often the turning points into a beautiful, beautiful new start of things. That's my experience. And I'm working with fire, making these paintings, right? And I don't know if you know anything about art degrees. So I've been painting for 2 years for a big thesis show. And I'm 2 months from the thesis show when somebody shoots a bottle rocket through the window on the 4th of July and everything burns up. It's all gone. 2 years worth of work up in smoke. No irony there, right? Just the girl that paints with fire. It was in a big stone abbey. And so the building itself was fine. And I was allowed in to go see if there was anything salvageable. And I went with a friend from Alcoholics Anonymous, and she looked at me and she said, "You know, this didn't happen to you, right?" I said, I do. I know. It was the first time that something big had happened and it didn't feel like the Eeyore cloud. It didn't feel like the lightning rod. I knew that fires happen. Why not me? Instead of why me, why not me? Fires happen, and I was going to be okay. Not only that, but it was like God tapping me on the shoulder going, "Hey, kiddo, that was your idea, smoke painting? Here's mine." And you could see how the fire had rushed through the room and up the walls and across the ceiling. The light fixtures are literally melted. It was freaking beautiful. And my work changed overnight and it was better. It was like doing a fifth step, leaving all of the past behind. Literally, all that work prior to that was about the garbage I'd just gone through with my sister. And it's gone and I'm relieved of it. And I have had a new, clean beginning to absolutely insist on enjoying my life. I like to say that my God is the God of lemonade because, life gives everybody lemons sometimes, but it's my job to squeeze those puppies no matter what and firmly believe that God's got enough sugar to make anything sweet. That's my God. That's the God that I need to keep with me all day long, every single day. Whenever I am disturbed, there is something wrong inside of me. If I am perceiving something that is off, it is because my hand is not with God's. And taking those inventories makes me want to know God better. When I retire at night, right, I constructively review my day. I am building a world. I am building a life with God. I don't feel like it's, self-flagellation today. I feel like it's an opportunity to see how much God loves me, even though I've fallen down so many times. I get to recognize that I am truly, truly human. I don't do the, did I make a mistake? I'm doing the where's Waldo? They're there. The more I can see them, the better I can be tomorrow. The more I can be of help and service to you tomorrow. I ask God each day to give me a servant's heart. I want to function with love. That's what I truly want. That's what I ask for more than anything, that through self-forgetting that we find. And I don't do it perfectly. I am on my butt a lot. I like to say I walk next to women with bloody knees. Those of you who look all perfect and great, God bless you. If you're really that good, maybe you should sponsor me. I don't know. But I prefer to trust people who I watch fall down and get up again. I want to be somebody who is going to absolutely insist that God is bigger than any problem I could have. Anything, anytime, any place. Don't you dare limit my God. It's not possible. When my kids were born, they were both really sick, and doctors told me, that kids like mine died. My son couldn't walk, he couldn't talk, and I knew God was bigger. And I did things they told me I shouldn't do. And today you'd never know. And I don't think it's because I did all the right things. I don't think it's because I knew the right people. I do believe that because we are not limited by our character defects, that we lean into them and God will convert them into assets. That's what I believe. My greatest problems become my greatest joys. And when I got these sick kids, it wasn't why me. I knew that God gave them the mother they needed. It wasn't that I got sick kids. That's how you learn to see God's fingerprints on your life. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for teaching me how to absolutely insist one day at a time that there is nothing bigger than God, that these steps really can help me find the answer to any problem, that I don't need to have your God. I need to have the God of the big book. That all I need to be willing to do is to look from the distance between my program and the program, and I will find peace. Whenever I am lining that stubborn streak of mine back into God, you can't help but have a wonderful day. So God bless you. Have a beautiful 2022 and do not make other plans. Thanks for my sobriety.